don't have to look. We'll come back to that. Okay, I'll do Europe. Okay, so from now on, we're going to do the same subject on patent law with respective views from different jurisdictions. So I'll do Europe. If I have enough time and Kim allows me, I'll do Israel as well. Okay, deadline, 31 months. What happens if you miss the deadline? You can fix it. Okay, you get a notice of loss of rights, then you have another 2 months. You have to pay 50% more official fees, but you can still file the patent in Europe. Excess fees. As you all probably know, most of the European patent applications are filed today with 15 claims. The reason is that if you file more than 15 claims, you have to pay top pound. Then if you cross 50, you're really in trouble. And there's another surcharge for claims of pages over 35. Okay, that's interesting. Acceleration. If you want your patent granted in Europe quickly, what do? Well, one option is to file your first application in Europe. If you do, you'll usually get a search report within 3 months. But even if you don't, you can always, and that's important, you can always accelerate your European application. There's no fee. And you just need to let the European Patent Office know that you want the patent to be granted quickly. You send them it's a form, you file it, you get your search report within 3 months or so. Many people don't know that, so they wait. So we've recently got a case from a client whose case was waiting at the European Patent Office for 10 years. So acceleration, very simple. Europe is also part of the patent prosecution highway with the US and with a few other countries. My personal approach is that on patent prosecution highways in Europe is that since there's the pace available, there's no fee, you don't have to amend your application to fit into any other application. My personal approach is that the PPH is not really needed to accelerate applications in Europe. If anyone thinks otherwise, I'm happy to discuss it. What happens if you need to slow down, if your clients run out of money or needs some time for research or whatever and doesn't want his application examined? If you miss deadlines in Europe, it's not the end of the story. You'll get an option. Most of the deadlines, you'll get an option to do further processing, which is just paying another fee, getting the application back on track. So take it into account that you can always wait, not only wait until the last minute to file responses. There's also another period of time which you can buy. So if when clients come to you with limited budgets and say, "Oh, I'm looking for an investment. What can I slow down?" European responses are one of the things you can slow down. A recent change is that when you file a national phase application, you need to respond. You used to need to wait until you get an invitation to respond, and until the application was examined. As you know, it's been you had just 1 month since you get an invitation, but now they're changing it, so you have more time. Okay, software roughly patents on software are allowed. If there's a technical effect, it used to be a matter of non-patentable subject matter. If there's no technical effect now, cases are examined more in the lines of inventive step. So if you don't have a true technical effect, you may be told that there's no inventive step. But this is basically the approach, far less liberal than the US in view of the most recent US case law. Business methods, as a rule, are usually not allowed in Europe. It's quite rare. There are particular business methods which are allowed, but usually they're not. Okay, there's a new disclosure requirement in Europe. It's not as bad as it looks. Okay, international applications entering national phase will be due the calculation of the time frame is not for national phases entering since January. It's national phases international applications entering January, and then when the national phase is filed, then there may be a disclosure requirement. The EPO may invite applicants to submit results of search reports, but it's far less a rigid requirement than in the US. And translation of references is not required. Where's Kim? I think I have time for Israel, so I'll just use the fact that Kim's not here and I'll do Israel as well. Okay, oh, here I am. Do I have time for Israel? Yeah, thank you. National phase deadline, 30 months. No extensions are available. So if you lost it, you're in trouble. You can try and file your application late. If you're just a day late or a few days late or even a month late and you have a good excuse, you may get your application allowed. You may get the filing date. You have to file it with a petition. It's not easy. You have to prove that you care, but it's possible. It's been done. Excess fees, there are hardly any. Applications in Israel are filed in English language. Unless you cross 50 claims, there's no surcharge. There's nothing for extra pages. Basically, it's one fee for the app. Acceleration will be granted in the following, will be allowed in the following scenarios. Either if there's suspected infringement. Many people don't know that, but suspected infringement is interpreted very generally in Israel. If all you have to do is get someone to be willing to sign an affidavit that he's heard somebody say that somebody wants to infringe your patent, that would be enough. You don't have to submit any proof. All you have to say is that you've heard something, and that would do. So in practice, you can usually get your applications accelerated in Israel if there's anything. The thing is that there's a fee, it's not very high. The thing is that even if they are accelerated, they're not really accelerated. And it'll still take a year or so to get your patent granted, but it's far better than like 4 or 5 years if you have to wait for a regular procedure. Recently, we've had green applications. Another thing to know about the Israeli Patent Office is that there is a particular person that you have to send an email to every time you file a green application and request to accelerate it on the green track. If you just file it and request to accelerate it, it won't happen. You have to send an email to the assigned person and let him know that you actually filed an accelerated application, then you'll get it. And there's no fee. You'll have an examination report within 3 or 4 months, which is relatively quickly for the Israeli Patent Office. And this is very recent. Applications originally filed in Israel. The Israeli Patent Office seems to think that applications which will originally be filed in Israel should be accelerated just as what happens in the UK. In the UK, if you have your first application filed in the UK, it'll have a search report within usually 3 or 4 months. So the Israeli Patent Office decided to do the same thing. Interestingly, the Commissioner of Patents, who recently left his job and was replaced by a different Commissioner of Patents, decided to do that one day before he left his job. So we're still to see if it's really going to happen and if it's realistic, but because it seems like the previous commissioner didn't really think he can do it, but he seems to have faith in the new one. So we'll see how it goes. Okay, slowing down there is an official practice of slowing down patent applications in Israel. You can ask to slow them down, and they will slow them down for you. You have to pay about $14 to $15 per month to slow down an application, and then you'll have it slowed down for pretty much as you want. This is a very important practice because Israel will allow every application which was allowed in a corresponding country out of a list of 7 or 8 countries, which include most of the important countries, such as US, Europe, Russia, Australia, and a few other countries. So if you have one of those countries allow your patent, then you can have Israel allow it automatically. So if you just happen to reach examination in Israel before you reach the examination in those countries, you usually want to ask to slow it down so you can wait until it's granted somewhere else and you can have it automatically. Okay, software used to be barely patentable in Israel. We were more rigid than Europe, but again, about a few days before the Commissioner of Patents, who recently left his job, left his job, he changed the approach. So there's a commissioner's circular saying that there's new law. It's not very clear, but it seems to be something between the English approach of contribution and the European approach of technical effect. So basically, it seems like Israel pretty much aligned itself with Europe. Business methods are not allowed in Israel. Disclosure requirement. There is a disclosure requirement under Israeli law. It starts when the application reaches examination. Together with, once an application reaches examination, there's what is called a Section 18 notice. The Patent Office lets you know that your application reached examination. He asks you to disclose everything you know. And recently, the Israeli Patent Office started requiring that translations of references will be filed, which is very burdensome, but now is required. The disclosure requirement goes on since the moment that the application reached examination and up to the moment that the patent is granted. So you have to continue disclosing information if you know, just like in the US. Okay, Israel isn't a relevant market for every type of product. It's not a very large market. It's 7 million people. You would not want to file railway-related patents in Israel, but here's what you will want to file in Israel. Everything that has to do with the military. Yes, we are a country in war, and we use military equipment. So it's definitely an important market for military-related products, and we file many applications of this type. In terms of electronics, it's a small market, but it's a very active market. I think I've read somewhere that it's highest entrance rate of smartphones, for example, like 70 or 80% of the population have smartphones. So if you have electronics, you can certainly consider Israel. There's also the issue of a lot of R&D going on in Israel in the electronics field. So it's very likely that your infringer or prospective infringer is going to be an Israeli company. We've actually had many cases where we had patents filed for clients and it turned out to be that their competition is also Israeli companies. So, you may want to file patents in Israel for this purpose. Litigation in Israel is very cheap compared to other countries. So stopping infringement in Israel may be much easier than stopping it elsewhere. Medical devices. Israel is a huge R&D market for medical devices. So you may want to file medical devices there, and pharmaceuticals, just like you file them everywhere else, you'll certainly want to file them in Israel. I think that's it for me. I've said nothing about my firm, so very briefly, it's an Israeli, UK, European firm that does mostly patents, but also trademark work and contentious work, litigation. And that's pretty much it after me speaking, Aaron.